Hi guys, T here from Bed Crime Stories, second video of the day. If you haven't watched the first one, go back and see it. I'm going to read you an article that appeared today on the website for NBC News. The article is by reporter Anna Turning. It reads, Katie Proudfoot recalls the evening of Sunday, February 25th, 2024 as a typical one at home in Hendersonville, Tennessee. Her 15-year-old son, Sebastian Rogers, got ready for bed around 9 p.m., said, "I love you," to his mom and his two dogs, and then headed to his bedroom for the night. Katie remembers hearing a noise coming from Sebastian's room around 10 p.m. I hollered out to him and he answered me, Katie said. I didn't think a whole lot of it. About an hour later, Katie went to bed. She had no idea her life would be very different in the morning. Monday morning, Katie went to her son's room. It was about 6 in the morning when I went to wake him up for school. Katie said, I went in his room and I was like, dude, time to get up. Okay, so that's new information there. We've never heard her say that part. Dude, time to get up. By the way, who says that to an empty bed? Back to the article. Normally he will turn and look, and he didn't. And I realized he wasn't in his bed, Katie said. The following moments are every parent's worst nightmare. Quote, I looked everywhere in and around the house and I couldn't find him, Katie said. I checked his bathroom and he wasn't in there. Okay, this is T. That's also new information. We didn't hear about her checking the bathroom, at least not specifically. Back to the article. And I was like, okay, well, maybe he went to the kitchen, maybe he got up before me. And so I went through the house. And when I didn't see him is when I started to panic a little bit. Typo, that was, what did it say? And when I didn't see him is when I was starting to panic a little bit, Katie said. Quote, and I ran through literally every area of the house, everywhere. And that's when I really started to panic, end quote. So all of those details and the emphasis on looking through every room, that's pretty much new because she did say in an initial interview that, mind you, it was all done in 1 minute. Katie says she jumped in her car and began driving around the neighborhood. Katie also called her husband, Chris, Sebastian's stepfather, who was out of town on a business trip at the time. What? T here. Business trip? I don't think so. I mean, that's not how they've referred to it before. He was working on a construction site in Memphis. Back to the article. It's like terror, Katie told Dateline. What happened? Where did he go? I was in my car and I stopped and I asked one of the ladies walking her dog and she was like, no, I haven't seen him. And it really started to kick in at that point, Katie said. Katie said she then headed to Sebastian's school and got on a 3-way call with Chris and the Sumner County Sheriff's Office. By the time she got there, she was told to turn around and head home because law enforcement was headed to their house. That's different wording now as well because previously they said that Chris told her to turn around and go home because law enforcement was headed there. And that's very important because if they really were on a 3-way, then Katie would have heard that for herself and Chris would not have had to tell her to go back to the house. Okay, the stories are not the same, and when the stories aren't the same, somebody or someone may be lying. That's Deception Detective 101. Back to the article where they're quoting Katie saying this. It was just like more and more people were coming and everyone was looking, and every time someone came back and they didn't have him, end quote, Katie couldn't finish the thought. Sebastian is on the autism spectrum. Katie says you wouldn't recognize him as a special needs person just by looking at him. He is smart and capable and functional, but he does have areas that he struggles in, end quote. Katie told Dateline that Sebastian does respond differently in certain situations. He does have that sensory issue with loud noises, specifically like spontaneous ones, so he does avoid sudden loud noises, she said. He also hates bugs and would avoid any area where he saw one, according to his mother. What Sebastian loves is water. Swims like a fish, Katie said. Okay. The article continues. The search efforts for Sebastian were immediate and intense. This is a very large-scale response, Sheriff Eric Craddock of the Sumner County Sheriff's Office told Dateline via email. Craddock directed Dateline to the TBI newsroom for more information. That morning, the Sumner County Sheriff's Office issued a missing persons report to begin efforts to locate Sebastian. A TBI endangered child alert was pushed out and was then elevated to a statewide Amber Alert, the website states. Due to Sebastian's love of water, quote, pools in the neighborhood were searched, dive teams were brought in, and bodies of water around the neighborhood and beyond that area were searched, including caves. In his email to Dateline, Sheriff Craddock elaborated on what resources were used in the search for Sebastian. Here's a quote. Everything, foot, canine, drone, air assets, fixed wing and helicopter, horse, mounted patrol, USAR, resources from across the state, and federal government assisted with the case. The search during the week he went missing was extremely large scale, end quote. The sheriff's office even employed some unconventional search methods in its attempt to locate Sebastian. Notably, they encouraged those participating in the search to play Sebastian's favorite music in an attempt to draw him out. Quote, this advice was called in by a citizen. I tried and will continue to try anything to bring a resolution to this case, end quote, Craddock said. That's interesting. They said the advice to play Sebastian's favorite music was called in by a citizen. So was that somebody in the neighborhood? Who would that have been if it wasn't Seth, Katie, or Chris? Despite the intense search efforts, no clues were turned up that led authorities to Sebastian's whereabouts. According to Sheriff Craddock, the Amber Alert for Sebastian is still active. Katie believes that wherever Sebastian went, quote, he had every intention of coming back home, end quote. She has never said that before. He had every intention of coming back home. Okay, Katie. He was excited to start taking agriculture classes at school? Really, we've never heard that before, and we are now a year into him being missing. The article then quotes Katie again. They actually have animals in the school that the kids will work with as they advance through the classes. And that was what he really wanted. He wanted to get in there and start working with the animals, end quote. That's another very interesting detail. You think she would have shared that before. But I am thinking that in this interview, Katie not saying a whole lot wasn't going to really look very good. It wouldn't go down well on Dateline. So I'm assuming she's adding this filler info now to perhaps portray a portrait of a mother who is very invested in her child, very aware of what he wants to do at school, what his dreams are, etc. Very interesting. Sheriff Craddock wants to assure the public that the investigation into Sebastian's disappearance is active and ongoing. Here's another quote from Sheriff Craddock. Our team is committed to following every lead, analyzing every piece of evidence, and uncovering the truth about what happened to Sebastian Rogers. We understand the community's deep concern and the desire for answers, and we share that concern. However, I urge everyone to rely on verified information from law enforcement rather than online speculation. Misinformation can hinder the investigation and distract from our efforts to bring Sebastian home, end quote. The article goes on to say the sheriff would not comment on whether authorities suspect foul play or have any persons of interest in the case. Now that's very interesting because in the past they have said that they don't have any evidence of foul play. So now they don't want to comment about it. That is very interesting, and I would say that that's very good news for those of us who suspect there is foul play. Okay, here's another quote from him. It reads, our priority is finding Sebastian and bringing resolution to his family and this community. If you have any credible information, we ask that you come forward and report it to the appropriate authorities. Together we will seek justice and the truth, end quote. At the time of his disappearance, Sebastian was 5'5" and 120 pounds, end quote. Doubtful. I think Sebastian was more like 113 pounds, if that, and he would have had to be wet. He would be 16 years old today. He has brown eyes, blonde brown hair, and was last known to be wearing a black sweatshirt, black sweatpants, and black framed glasses. The Proudfoots believe Sebastian may not have been wearing shoes when he disappeared. Here's a quote. Every pair of shoes in this house have been accounted for, Chris Proudfoot told Dateline. Quote, all the shoes that I can think of that we had in the house, end quote. The article goes on to say, Katie and Chris want to make the public aware of some of Sebastian's identifying features and tendencies. Wow, a year out and only now we're getting this info? He has large freckles on the back of his neck. That's absolutely new info. And he walks on his toes. We noticed that in the Roadhouse video, but Katie and Chris have never mentioned that until now. He also has a unique run. They did mention the run in the past, putting his arms slightly behind his back and leaning forward. They urge anyone who thinks they see Sebastian to not approach him, but instead take pictures and call 911. Chris said, quote, let law enforcement handle it if somebody spots him, but please stay vigilant, end quote. The TBI newsroom asked anyone with credible information about Sebastian to reach out through the TBI tip line at 1-800-TBI-FIND. If the tip includes a possible sighting, pictures should be sent to tips2tbi@tbi.tn.gov. The sheriff urges any photographic information be sent immediately as time may be of the essence in relevant sightings. And guys, keep in mind, the FBI is offering a reward of $50,000 for any information leading to the whereabouts of Sebastian Rogers. And of course, we know that Dog the Bounty Hunter and At Night Media have a reward up to the amount of $447,000. Oh my goodness. If you know something and you need money, you better call. But of course, only call if you have a legitimate tip. Don't waste their time with BS. Okay, so obviously Dateline is doing an episode on the Sebastian Rogers case. I am absolutely flabbergasted that Katie is only now sharing this information about the freckles on Sebastian's back, his desire to take agriculture classes. Unbelievable that only now is she saying all this stuff. I feel like this is for the public. This is for Dateline. This is to appear like a caring parent who really knows everything about her son. All of this stuff would have been relevant back in the beginning. You know, she also says he hates bugs and would avoid any area where he saw one. So are we really supposed to believe that Sebastian went out in the middle of the night when it was chilly without his shoes, and he's a boy who hates bugs? I mean, I don't think he'd want to be outside where he couldn't see the bugs that he would be stepping on barefoot. You dig what I'm saying? You dig what I'm laying down here? By the way, if you're watching this on TikTok, you need to go over to my YouTube channel, Bed Crime Stories. You'll see the witch logo. Over there is where I will post on Friday, and that's where you need to leave the list of songs if you want your name entered in the raffle. While you're there, subscribe to the channel. I would appreciate that so very much. Thank you guys. Bye.